'Tis I.
Hey everyone, glad to see you back, glad to see you looking fresh. So, if you've been paying attention to the entertainment news lately, you will have known that Discovery bought Warner Brothers, which means, of course, the two companies are going to merge together into one conglomerate. So, we're going through the ugly phases of that transition right now. And it's been uglier than I kind of anticipated. So I wanted to make a video talking about it. When it comes to like the businessy stuff, while I am interested in it, it normally doesn't come up in conversations a lot, but this is such a big deal that I wanted to make this whole video talking about it. So let's just start with the basic overview of, Discovery is taking over, or has at this point taken over, Warner Brothers. The new CEO, David Zaslav, now runs the whole shebang. He runs all of Warner Media's everything. DC and Looney Tunes, all their movie divisions, stuff like that. It's exciting because Warner Brothers, while having been able to make some fantastic things, has been a bit messy with their stuff, and the pros and cons of being messy means you get some of the best stuff going, but you also get some of the lowest lows. But this transition seems to be that David Zaslav is really focusing on cutting costs because Warner Brothers was very much in debt. I don't know the exact numbers, but Warner Brothers was in a big deficit. His focus has been, let's reduce as much cost as possible. And where we're seeing that a lot is with HBO Max, which I don't know if I've mentioned it on this channel, but HBO Max is my favorite streaming service. The layout's a bit weird, finding stuff is a bit strange on it, but like when it comes to pure libraries, HBO Max has the rest of them beat. You know, I enjoy my Disney stuff, I enjoy some stuff Netflix makes, and you know, even a Shudder original every now and again will do something special. But when it comes to every time I'm looking for a movie, HBO is the place to check out first. Anytime I want to blind watch something, if it's made by HBO, it's probably good. Like, I'll take Euphoria, for instance. I've never seen it, but people love it, and I know that if I eventually do try to watch it, I'll probably really like it. They just have that stellar track record going for them. Until recently, HBO Max has been like a secure source of a ton. Until recently, when shows and films started to be taken off of the service. At first, it was without warning, which is not cool. Obviously, things come and go from streaming services. That's kind of one of my biggest problems with them. But it's also one of the biggest pros because you never know. Every month, a cool new thing could show up, or a movie you've been wanting to see, or a show you've been hearing about could show up, and it's magically just in your hands because you have this streaming service. Great. But when you get on the other side of that and you magically don't have access to this anymore, that's when it becomes a problem. And at first it was like 6 movies, and now it's like a bunch of shows going as well. A lot of like originals, which is like the problem. And this harkens to my always point of physical media is where it's at. Now, you see behind me, this movie is a fluke that it happened, right? Obviously, there was the big outcry, and with the pandemic that happened, HBO Max was being created. A perfect storm, like, of horrid outside influence, plus a whole new development system, made it so that this movie could happen. And I love this movie, Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's so much better than the original. I've talked about it. I have a whole video about that movie. But my point is, they didn't need to make this on physical media, right? And I don't understand all the licensing, because why would I, about how shows are licensed to streaming services. Like, let's take an example here. So American Pickle, which is a Seth Rogen film, was on HBO Max, but now isn't. It was touted as a HBO Max original, and I saw it on HBO Max when it came out. I thought it was fine. I didn't love it, so it leaving doesn't personally affect me that much, but the idea of it leaving does. So I don't understand the licensing costs of licensing a movie like American Pickle. I would just think HBO pays to just buy it, like, this is our movie now, and to put it on their service. But I guess not, because the fact, I guess you have to pay them a certain amount for being on the service, so David Zaslav's idea of cutting costs, let's get rid of it. Which on paper sounds good, but when it's getting rid of things people like, and the reason people go to streaming services to watch things that they like, is when it becomes a problem. Now, I don't know if American Pickle was a huge smash hit and it made people sign up for HBO Max. Let's say it wasn't. Okay, fine, getting rid of it doesn't make a problem. Let's say it was, though. People aren't going to show up anymore. It's silly that I'm bringing all this up about a movie about Seth Rogen playing two characters and a whole plot around pickles. But it's just a perfect example of this problem. And not only the HBO Max issue at hand, which is upsetting to a point, because again, like I say all the time, streaming services aren't like a problem. And a lot of people like to argue, especially people who like to collect movies like me, will happily argue that streaming services ruined everything. They didn't. They gave access to a lot of stuff that wouldn't have been made otherwise, and they give access to a lot of people who wouldn't watch a ton of movies otherwise. Like, there are movies that came out on streaming that were able to get a wide audience, and especially when the pandemic hit, streaming really helped a lot of people help movies come out that were completely locked up. You know, they weren't going to come out in theaters for a while, so it helps. So streaming isn't a problem, but buying physical media is a solution to a problem that is made by streaming, and this is a great example of that. So, even if a show or a movie claims to be an original of a streaming service, it can be taken away at any time. I remember a couple years ago, Netflix made the Marvel stuff, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, stuff like that, and Daredevil was like put out on like DVD and Blu-ray and stuff, and it was a weird thing of like, why would I buy it then? If it's always going to be on Netflix, but it's not on Netflix anymore. It's on Disney Plus, but there was a period where it wasn't on anything. And again, it's easy to think, well, I don't think Disney Plus is going away, but if it does one day, where's all the Disney Plus original stuff go? You know, all the Pixar stuff. I own Luca as well. The Pixar stuff on there deserves to be seen. You know, if Disney Plus goes away, then the physical media stuff is a place to see it. I always harp way too much on this. I have two other topics to get to, so I'm just going to close the conversation there. If you see a movie, even if it's basically only made for a streaming service and it has a physical, you love that thing, own that thing physically. They cannot digitally take it away from you. I own Zack Snyder's Justice League. If that goes away from HBO Max, there will be a huge outcry. They still could very well do it. I own it, though, so I'm safe. But not everyone will be. Problem number 2 with what's going on right now is the Batgirl problem. I'm sure if you're watching this, you've very much heard of what happened with Batgirl and what happened with Scoob. A scary time when you make a movie and you've been given a budget and a cast and a script and you're making a movie, and then your new boss shows up and is just like, you know, we're not going to make that movie. That movie's, we're killing it. We're using it for tax money. And what a disheartening thing to feel, because their reasoning was, we do not believe in this product. We do not think this will help our brand. What an awful feeling it must have been to like hear that news, not be given a heads up. From what I've heard, what I've read, that we're not given a heads up, and that's an awful thing to think about. What do? You know, some people would never make a movie again. I hope that they don't. I don't personally recognize or the names of the directors. Maybe I've seen something off the top of my head. I can't remember anything. Obviously, the star, she was in The Heights, and she was great, so I've seen her in something, and hopefully she'll go on to do stuff, because she was great in The Heights, and I want to see her in more things. But just release the movie, man. It paid $90 million for this to say no more. If it was almost done, just like bite the bullet and let it go. I get the idea of like cutting costs, but like, could it have made more money to just come out? And I don't know all the business, like the chess game behind the scenes of like, okay, we're gonna get rid of this, and if we get a tax write-off on it, we'll make this much money back on it, so we don't have to release it, but we'll never release it. But if we release it, it'll hurt this, and this going forward, because if the movie's awful, then no one will want to see a Batgirl ever again. So if we put Batgirl in another thing, no one will be excited about it. I don't know the thought process. All I know is the movie didn't happen. The Scoob sequel didn't happen. Which I don't want to say is a lesser problem, because the first Scoob movie I didn't like, but it, you know, if you did, you want another one, that's not happening either. What are we doing? Why are we getting rid of movies that are like almost done? And again, maybe it wasn't almost done. Maybe the history behind it or the behind the scenes that Batgirl was like 90% shot. And people were reporting that's 9% done. I think it was fully shot and like almost done. So just drop it on HBO Max. You have an entire streaming service to put things on. Just put it on there, man. But at the same time, that's only problem 2 is the Batgirl Scoob issue, which are 2 movies that I'm sure, much like the 90s Fantastic Four movie, which if you didn't know, was never released. No one should have ever been able to see that movie, but it exists online now because people got copies of it and released it. Unless they lock down that movie or completely destroy every copy of that movie, Batgirl one day, whether through an official Warner Brothers Discovery means or not, will exist. I would put money on it. My final issue is, where's the company going? We've heard and read things like David Zaslav wants to focus on DC. He believes that DC characters have been mistreated, misused, and I agree somewhat. I disagree somewhat. There are things that Warner Brothers has done, like not following up with more Superman stuff. Obviously, I love Superman. Not seeing him a lot. They had a great cast of people for the Snyder cut. Keeping that would be great. Okay, so DC stuff, I'm sure it's going to be fine. That's the one I'm not like too concerned with. But the rest of it. They released a sales call, I believe is what it was. Slides of it were showcased online of what they were talking about. And I'll show one of the slides here. I don't even have to read it. I have no notes here. How many times I've read this over? I have no notes. That's how much I've gone over this and try to make sense of this. So here's the slide. And if you look at this line here, it's talking about what they think their biggest global powerhouses are. What are the 7 biggest things we own? People know and people react, accept, and enjoy. And they're listed. And what I would say is how they feel about each one. This appears to be a list from 1 to 7. It may not be. Maybe they were grouping things of equal quality, however they saw fit. I don't know. To me, it reads that from left to right, best to worst, in 1 to 7 order. So it goes, Batman makes total sense to be number 1. I don't think anyone can disagree with that. Wonder Woman and Superman being next. Okay, a lot of DC up front, but then the immediate, pun very much intended, we jumped the shark all the way to Shark Week being number 4. Okay, we'll get back to that. Game of Thrones, I would argue, maybe it used to be in the top contenders, but at this point, maybe not, with how the ending went and how everyone kind of gave up. Number 6 being 90 Day Fiancé seems like a joke. And then number 7 being Harry Potter? I'm not even a big Harry Potter fan. If I was given this list of 7 things, list these 7 things in order of what you believe the world over enjoys, embraces, loves the most. Batman's number 1 is obvious to me. Harry Potter is number 2 is the next most obvious thing. The fact that this is all the way in the back, behind both 90 Day Fiancé and Shark Week, is insane. The fact that it's behind Superman, Wonder Woman, and Game of Thrones is also crazy to me. Like, what is this? What is this? The rest of this slide has some things that kind of make sense, but kind of don't. The fact that Looney Tunes is up here and not with these things down here, I don't get that at all. Why is it considered like a brand and not like a franchise? Anyways, that was that. You can screenshot that. It's not mine. I don't care. And look it over, mull it over if you want. But that's, like, I don't get what this is. What they're doing here. If you're just gonna try to force your stuff into Warner Brothers stuff, and I get that Warner Brothers hasn't handled their stuff the best. Like the whole, go back to the HBO thing, putting all of 2021 movies on HBO Max without asking. Very ridiculous idea. From a consumer standpoint, from where I was, it was a great idea. Look, I get to see all these movies at home. They could have handled a lot better with all their creatives, though, that's for sure. But anyways, seeing this list and seeing that they're so happy to put 90 Day Fiancé and Shark Week even on this list screams, we matter too. And Discovery, in terms of global powerhouses doesn't really, in my opinion. It screams like, yeah, look at us. We also contributed to pop culture when it... Yeah, people like Shark Week. People love Shark Week. I'll say people love Shark... If Shark Week went away forever, and 90 Day Fiancé went away forever, I don't think there would be as big of an issue as if any of these other things went away forever. I mean, even someone who loves Game of Thrones, I love it. I defend even the last season to an extent. I'd put that as number 5. As number 5, but like above the Discovery stuff, but below the rest of the Warner Brothers things on this list. And the fact that it's above Harry Potter, I don't think they understand what they have with that. That's my whole discussion about what's happening right now. In the coming weeks, in the coming months, in the coming years, honestly, we'll see what happens with this merger. Maybe it'll be great. Maybe we'll see just a ton of new great things come out of Warner Brothers that we would have never seen before. I don't know. I liked where Warner Brothers was kind of going. Warner Brothers had, last year, they made what? They made Godzilla vs. Kong. They made Dune. Those were both great. I liked the new Matrix. I liked how weird the new Matrix was. People didn't like it, that's fine. But, even this year, they made Suicide Squad. I loved Suicide Squad. This year we had the Batman already. I liked where DC was kind of going. Peacemaker was good. Maybe it'll get better. Maybe I'm sitting here screaming about nothing. I don't think it can get a ton worse than how we were a couple years ago. I have some suggestions. Let's do that now. And on a positive note, what would I do if I was in his position? Well, this is just a bunch of personal takes. This is no business advice, obviously, because I'm in no position to do that. But I would make more Godzilla and Kong movies, which they're doing great, but plan more than just one. Godzilla and Kong, I think a lot of people came on board with Godzilla vs. Kong, so I think making more of those is a smart idea. And more monsters, obviously, and have a big fun time with that. Great. Teen Titans. Teen Titans Season 6. That's the thing I want the most out of Warner Brothers always. Anytime a DC fandom, I don't think we're going to have one of those this year, but the last 2 times that's happened, it's the only thing I wanted to hear was, we're bringing back Teen Titans, but that hasn't happened yet. Make a sequel to the Batman from this year, which hasn't been greenlit officially, but things the director's in talks to do it, so I don't know. Dune 2, don't scrap that. If you scrap that, that was really silly. Dune was fantastic, and it really needs a sequel. If those 4 things, if Zaslav does those 4 things, this is perfect for me. The Batman 2, I think that's the most, I think Dune 2 is the most likely. More Godzilla Kong movies, not just the one, but more after that. The Batman 2 and Teen Titans Season 6. So what do you guys think about this whole thing? Let me know down below what you were feeling about the combination. What would you do if you were in position to do whatever you wanted with Warner Brothers and Discovery's libraries? Would it be more than just DC stuff? Pick 2 DC things. That's what I think of immediately when I think of Warner Brothers. But hey, thank you so very much for watching. This is a pretty decently long one. It's just me yelling into a camera for a little bit, but that's okay. As always, like this if you like this, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you at some point.